Hello, and thank you for joining me again today on the Invita whiteboard. Today we're going to be talking about understanding diabetes. Okay? And essentially there are two types of diabetes. We know one to be what they call typically a type 1 diabetes. And to make it easier, to me this is and to a lot of people, this is a chronic autoimmune disease, possibly infectious disease, diabetes, okay? And in this picture, we have somebody who, we'll draw a little picture of a skinnier person who's typically not related to being overweight or having a lifestyle problem, or they got it as a child, a juvenile type diabetes, but it's a different types of diabetes, an autoimmune, infectious disease, chronic disease diabetes. Type 2 diabetes, this is the one most people are familiar with, is what I like to call a lifestyle diabetes, which is due to being overweight. Dietary health plays a role in both of them, but significantly in the type 2 because it has to do with what we're eating and putting in our body. So over here we have our little picture of an individual who's overweight and carrying a lot of the fat in the abdominal region and on the sides. And it has a lot to do, and I'm going to just draw with what they're putting into their mouth and what they're eating here. And it affects actually both, but this particular one is type 2. So real quick summary, type 1, chronic autoimmune disease, infectious disease type diabetes. Type 2, a lifestyle diabetes, okay? So let's break this down. Most people watching are probably in the type 2 category, but we're going to go ahead and I don't like to just define it as by age because you can be very older and skinny and still get type 1 diabetes, okay? So here I'm going to go and break this down. So let's spend just a few minutes talking about the type 1, okay? Type 1 is typically distinguished as being more of an autoimmune, chronic, and potentially infectious disease-related problem. And here's what's going on. We have our person again here, Bob. And inside his body we have here his pancreas. And what's happening is his pancreas, the pancreas actually produces insulin. It's the job of the pancreas to make insulin. And insulin's important because I'm going to draw here a cell. And I'm going to think of insulin like a little straw. And what the job of insulin is to take the sugar molecule, here's my star sugar molecule, and it takes it and brings it into the cell, okay? Now what's happening in the type 1 diabetes is that the immune system, which I'm going to draw here by drawing a triangle, the immune system is attacking the pancreas. It's destroying what we call the islets of Langerhans, the pancreas, and the cells that actually make insulin. So we have a reduction or a decrease in our insulin, or if you will, our straws that shuttle glucose into the cell, okay? Let me clear this up. In our type 2 diabetes, it's a very different type of diabetes, we are dealing with, again, what I like to call a lifestyle diabetes, more related to what we're eating and more related to what we're doing in our lifestyle. So here we have our guy Bob, and again, a little bit more overweight and abdominal fat and all that is going on here. And this individual, Bob, has been eating a lot of the Western diet, sugars and processed foods, and has gained weight, and probably also might be dealing with high blood pressure, maybe even high cholesterol. Sometimes these things all travel together and have to do with our dietary intake. And so what's happening in this type 2 diabetes is that we still have the pancreas right here, and it's producing insulin. No problem. So here we have our cell, and again I talked about the straw being here's our sugar molecule in the shape of a star, and it shuttles that sugar right into the cell, right? And the straw, or my little analogy here of the straw, represents the insulin. What's happening in more of a type 2 diabetes is it's not that technically you have a problem with insulin. You have plenty of insulin is present. But what happens is insulin becomes insensitive or unable to shuttle the sugar molecule into the cell. So we have lots of insulin. We have a lot of these straws throughout. but they're having a hard time shuttling the sugar in. It's almost become insensitive to it. There's so much sugar everywhere, too much. And so what happens is the sugar builds up into the bloodstream. And so now we have, let me just erase this all. So we have this insulin that's not properly being sensitive to bringing the sugar into the cell. And so now we have, I'm going to do our cross-section of our blood vessel. We have a big blood vessel here. And we have, I'm going to do all these little stars as a representation. We have tons of sugar or glycosylated hemoglobin inside the blood vessel wall. And what does that cause? Damage. Causes damage to circulation, to the organs. You can get shut down of the kidneys, of the eyes, major cardiovascular damage. And that's why we see that in every 10 seconds in the United States, somebody dies of a diabetes-related complication. Thank you for joining me today at the Invita Whiteboard. This is just giving you a basic understanding of type 1 and type 2.